Hey there everybody, this is Caitlin here and welcome back to Card Game Tuesday, the day of the week where we discuss all things card game related, and we are back with some new deck profiles for you after the drop of the first set, well the first part of the Lapis cluster, which is Curse of the Frozen Casket. I've been dead excited to be revamping some decks, doing some new decks or whatever, bringing you some new rulers and stuff and some new combos and things. So we're starting things off with basically everyone's new favourite ruler, new favourite waifu, or current, at least, Lapis Cluster waifu, is we're discussing Zero, the Sixth Sage of Light. Now, I've seen a couple of people commenting in different posts and stuff asking, why does everyone love Zero? Why is Zero getting so much love? Why is everyone so hyped about there? Well, there's a couple of different reasons why. First of all, if you were an old school fan back in Grim Cluster, you'll remember story-wise, well, at least if I recall correctly, because I'm still a little bit iffy about Grim Cluster's story, potentially. Zero was I think she originally was a dark sage. I believe she was the Sage of Null or something like that. And then after her fight with the True Little Red in the Castle in the Heavens or whatever, the fight for the Sacred Stones or whatever, and after Kaguyu's spell, which I think reverted the Cthulhus back to their human state and basically rewound the clock or whatever, she became the Sage of Light, which I don't know whether the Sage of Light was her original form and she became corrupted in her search for power, or whether she just became the new Sage of Light, because if I recall correctly, there was another Six Sage card before that was also a Light Resonator, but I don't know whether it was also the Sage of Light or whether that was just something else entirely. I can't actually remember. I think, was it Almerius or something like that? It might have been like the Sage of the Sky or something like that, but I digress. The other reason why people love Zero is obviously she's totally cute, she's adorable, and she happens to be a pretty awesome ruler. So she's the light ruler for the booster boxes. Her judgment only costs 2, which is insane, 2 light. She has the Energize ability, which pretty much all the new rulers have now, which is obviously, if you go second, you get the ability to spend that will coin that you have as a light will. She also has 2 different abilities depending on whether you're playing light or dark. For 1 light, you can target Resonator, it gains 100/100 until end of turn. Or you can use a dark, and a target Resonator loses flying, first strike, swiftness, precision, and imperishable in the turn. Now, be aware, because this does not affect Pierce. It's I think it's the only printed ability, other than Force, I believe, that Zero cannot affect. So basically, anything, as long as if it has Pierce, it's not going to lose Pierce. There's people who are asking, it does list abilities, but it doesn't list Pierce, so does Pierce get affected? But as far as I'm aware, Pierce does not get affected by this ability. And then, when we flip over to the awesome side, we get Saber, Master of the Magic Saber. I don't know where she gets the sword from or whatever. I was discussing this with people before. I was like, did she always have the sword, or was this a new thing? Because I don't remember her having the sword before. But she comes in pretty awesome. She's 1,100 for both her attack and defense. She gains precision, which is essentially target attack, because obviously target attack got renamed to precision in this set. You can prevent all damage that would be dealt to her while she is battling, which again, when she's attacking or blocking, she is technically battling, so she's technically dealing damage or whatever, so you prevent that. Also, J/Resonators your opponent controls lose and cannot gain flying, first strike, swiftness, precision, and imperishable, so the same on this side. Now, I need to double check actually whether, I know people were discussing it, if something enters after Zero flips, and there's my dog barking in the background. If something enters a field after Zero flips, say it's your opponent's turn and they play something and it has flying and whatnot, I'm not quite sure whether they get to keep it, because obviously Zero was already flipped, so therefore her her kind of entry effect didn't go off. But I'm not too sure about that. We'll need to double check that. But she is still pretty awesome. She's an amazing, amazing ruler. And that's why everyone is getting so hyped about her. I mean, I love her so much. Now, going into the build, the other good thing about Zero is what everyone loves, is that she is so versatile. She's probably almost as versatile as Shion in regards to a deck. There is no solid just one way to build a Zero deck. There are multiple different ways. You could go so many ways. You could do mono light, you could do dual, you could go tricolor if you want, you could make it a freaking Skittle deck if you want, but To keep them simple, I'm trying to work with a little theme here. The idea is that we're doing white-black or light-dark, whatever, kind of like mirror the idea of her two alter egos of the dark and the light sage, and that's what we're going to be doing with the build. Now, with this build in particular, I like to call it the disappearing act or whatever, because what we're doing is we're going to try and destroy our opponent's hand, and then we're also going to try and destroy their field before they can get up and get any actual damage or any kind of field state. So starting off with our 1-drop Resonators, the first one that we have is we have the awesome Servant of the Mikage. He's a 300, 1 dark. When he enters our field, we can put a 100 counter on a target Resonator, and if our opponent controls a special magic stone, we can put 2 counters instead. I opted to have, just in case, depending on what our opening stone is or whatever, if we happen to go first, we have a light 1-drop and we have a dark 1-drop, which is what we are going for. He's a pretty awesome. I like him. For our light drop, for our 1-drop, I decided to go for the Bard here. I think it's Storytelling Bard. Yes, because I quite like the idea of that. While we're like building up or whatever, we can easily just tap for 200 life. Or we could easily like lull our opponent into a false sense of security. If they have any kind of spells or whatever that, destroy Resonators or banish them or whatever, then they are most likely going to target this. Or if we get the choice, we will most likely target this, because ideally we don't need to keep it, but it's a handy thing to have just like in case we're like running low in health, because this is the only way that we're getting life gain in this deck. I was thinking about running the 1-drop light spell that lets you gain 1000 life, but I felt that was kind of conflicting too much with the theme of this deck. I might have it as a sideboard, just in case, like if I feel like my opponent's got like a really heavy-handed deck or whatever, but it is, like, it's potentially there. I can't remember what it's called. Is it like Protection of Fairies or something? I think it was from Battle for Ataratica, I'm pretty sure. But next up, for our 2-drops, we have Zero's Familiar, which basically, if you are running Zero, you are more than likely going to run her Familiar, because her Familiar is really good when combined with her. It's a 500, it has flying, obviously, because it's a chubby little owl. Our ruler gains a barrier, means that they cannot be targeted by spells or abilities our opponent controls. And this card has 300 as long as you control Zero, Master of the Magic Saber. So it only gets this ability if Zero is flipped over. Other than that, it's still a pretty good, body or whatever. It's 500 for 2, so, and it flies. So it can, like, peck away at our opponent. Next up, we have 3 of Rinka. I believe you're the second daughter, aren't you? Yes, you're the second daughter of Mikage. I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to bump this up to 4. I feel quite comfortable being at 3 with this card. It's a 600 for 2 dark. And whenever this card deals damage, you put a 100 counter on it. This card gains precision as long as we have a 100 counter on it. And we can remove a counter from it, and it can gain flying until the end of the turn. So this is a very versatile card. It works in very well with our Servant of the Mikage and with one of our spells that we're going to be running. And it's pretty good when we can do we can deal damage, we can buff this up as much as we want. I mean, say it attacks 4 times and it deals damage and it doesn't die, we're going to get it up to 1000 easily, because if it's a 2-drop, it's very unlikely that if we get it in early game, they're going to have something that can block that or whatever. Next up, we are running the first Shift Resonator that I've ever put in a deck. We're running 2 of the Alice Shifter. I was also, again, tempted to boost this up to 3, but I feel like I want to run it at 2 now and just see how it goes play-tested. Very well, you could easily add an extra Alice or whatever, because obviously we can play either side quite comfortably because we're playing light dark, and both sides have their actual benefits to what we want to do. So when it enters on this side, it's obviously 700. We pay 1 black and 2 void to Shifter if we do. If we do Shifter, we can play Shift anytime, we can play a Shift anytime we can play Spell Charm, which is basically the normal requirement for a Shifter. Other J Resonators, we control gain plus 200 defense, and when she enters our field, we gain 600 life. On the other side of it, I made them both the other side just in case I want to flip around with them. If we choose this Alice, she has 500 attack and 700 defense, but when she enters the field or she shifts, destroy a target Resonator with total cost 2 or less, and all our other J/Resonators gain plus 200. So if we have at least one of each of them on the field, we can guarantee that all our stuff is getting a 200 buff, just that's it. We can guarantee that at least. So it's kind of handy to just have the 2 of them in there to play either one of their sides. You could easily just run 3 or even a playset of 4 if you really wanted to. It's just really how you fancy it. But I'm going to see how running 2 of them does me now. Next up, we have Glorius. That's your name, isn't it? Yes, the Silver Knight, who I'm running at 3 now. I don't know whether I'll make it 4. I feel quite comfortable with it being at 3 right now because obviously it's a quick cast, whatever. 600, 700 for 3. I feel quite comfortable with it. When it enters our field, obviously, we destroy a target J/Resonator that dealt damage this turn. So ideally, we want to keep 3 stones open when it's our opponent's turn in case we need to protect something or destroy something that's going to be dealing that damage. We're not going to be using the second ability, which is pay a firewall and it gains plus 200 in first strike until end of the turn. We really don't care about that ability, so because obviously this is a light dark deck. And finally, for our last Resonator, we've got the heavy hitter, the big daddy. We have got Izanagi, the Keeper of the Seal, aren't you? Yes, you are. God, I hope they bring it back full arts for the Legacy Lost set, which is the set coming out obviously after Curse of the Frozen Casket. I really miss full arts. Like, honest to God, I was so sad when I found out that full arts weren't going to be a thing in this first set. I don't know whether it was a mistake or whether they are going to bring them back or whatever, but I mean, the kind of like the super foils or whatever they were calling them now, because they're the textured cards, they look nice, but you really can't tell their textures unless you're actually looking at them. Like, if you take a photo of them, you really can't tell. I prefer the full arts or whatever. Anyway, rant over about full arts versus super foils. Izanagi is pretty awesome. I'll read it from this one so I can actually understand what's being said here. He is a 6-drop, 1,100, so he's up there with 0. If for some reason we can't safely flip 0, he's also another option. When he enters our field, we can remove up to 3 target Resonators and or Regalia our opponent controls from the game. And when this card leaves our field for a non-field zone, we put those removed cards back in the owner's hand. But this card gains plus 300 for each card in all removed areas that was removed by this card. So if we successfully pull that off, that is like 3 times, that's like 900. So it could get up to 2,000, which is pretty insane. Plus we'll be like removing stuff from their field, whatever, Regalia or Resonators. So we'll probably be hurting them quite a bit. So Izanagi is pretty awesome. And now we are going into our spells / chants / whatever you really want to call them. Now, obviously, because we are running a 0 deck, it is almost an automatic requirement that we run this gorgeous little spell, which I totally adore, which is Zero's Magic Light. Disappear into the light, says Zero, Master of the Magic Saber. It's a 2-drop quick cast, but since Zero is our ruler, it only costs us 1 light to play this card, and we can remove a target attacking or blocking Resonator from the game, and that's why we're running 4 of it. The only downside, like, I mean, you know what would make these cards even better? If they had Remnant. Obviously, they don't have Remnant, which kind of sucks, but they might actually be broken if they actually had Remnant. But they are still pretty awesome, and if you are playing Zero, then this card is almost like a requirement because it is just so good. Going into our other spells, which are probably the ones that are focusing mainly on like hard removal and stuff, we are running 4 of Lapis's Dark Storm, if you remember, from Biffa? Yes, it's Battle for Arctica. So it's a 2-drop dark. Your opponent discards a card at random and then discards a card. So basically, we're getting rid of 2 cards, you know? We're like, basically, that's it. Like, there's a lot more you need to say about that. We're running 4 of it, obviously. So that's, you know, it's going to help us really destroy their hand. It also doesn't specifically say whether it needs to be a Resonator or an addition or blah, blah, blah. So that's pretty good. Next up, we have the Nameless Mist, which was very fun to play in the draft. It's a 1-drop dark. We look at our opponent's hand, choose a non-Resonator card, they discard that card, and we put a 100/100 counter on one of our Resonators. So basically, it's like a better Scorn of Dark Alice because we get rid of, like, say, a spell or an addition or whatever. We know what's in their hand, plus we get a tiny little buff to our Resonators. So we're definitely running 4 of that, which I like. And just as I was discussing Scorn of Dark Alice, hey, what do you know, we're running a playset of that as well, just to be sure, because we want to be able to get rid of their Resonators, plus, you know, it's a 1-drop spell, chant, totally love it, and, you know, we get to look at their hand, and, you know, I still love this card art for Dark Alice, even though her face is, like, super creepy. Like, look at her, like, so super creepy. So, that is a must-have for this deck. And the last spell that we're running, not a dark spell actually, is our only other light spell we're running. A playset of the Escape from Crisis, which you can see the Silver Knight here. And Charlotte just like, I don't know if they're like being attacked by Cthulhu or something. It looks really weird in the background. It's a 1-drop light with quick cast. We recover a target attacked or blocking Resonator, prevent the next damage that would be dealt to it this turn. And obviously Glorius is like, are you alright? Stay back. Leave the rest to me. I also really want to know who Glorius is. I feel like a lot of people are debating it's actually Faria, or maybe it's Alice and she's in disguise. I feel like if it was Alice, then we would already know. Plus, she looks a bit too tall to be Alice, and like, why would she randomly be wearing armor? We know that she's got Excalibur X, which is very interesting because if you remember correctly, the memory of Faria from the previous cluster ever, she was also pictured with Excalibur. Whether it was the same sword or not, we don't know. So I still have a strong feeling that this is going to be Faria, like reborn Faria, or the remainder of like Faria's will or something like that. I don't think it's Alice, but you know, we'll maybe find out in the next cluster. And then finally, we go into our stones, which, you know, pretty simple stuff for our stones. We're running a playset of the Magic Stone of Heaven's Rift, which, if you remember, is the Jewel Stone for light and dark. I know that a lot of people have been fearing Captain Hook for, like, special stone hate, and I really don't think that we need to be scared. I mean, yeah, your opponent, potentially if they're running, say, a blue deck, or if they're running Fairy Tales, there is a strong possibility they will be running Captain Hook, and your special stones may be a target. But at the same time, if they are running Captain Hook, they might even like take the option to return Resonators to your hand if you've managed to build up quite a bit of a wall, or they're, you know, scared of what you've got in the field. If we've dropped Izanagi or something, they might want to get that back onto our hand, or they might be wanting to get their cards back, whatever. So I don't feel like we have to be terrified to use Jewel Stones. That's my thought process on it. And just to support the Jewel Stones there, we are running 3 light stones and we are running 3 dark stones. Just so we've got like an even spread out of light to dark stones. I don't really want to like favour one stone over the other, which is why I kind of split them. I know that the majority of this deck is technically light, but the dark is also very, very handy. So that's why I'm like splitting them down the middle. And also, look at this awesome playmat that we have of the starter deck rulers. Sadly, I don't have the Zero playmat or whatever, because obviously I didn't win it at the pre-release, so I was super sad. But anyway, guys, this has been my deck profile for you. For Zero, the almost new goddess we don't know. I mean, like, I totally adore her. I know a lot of people also totally adore her. Well, you know, for good reason. She's a really, really good ruler, and I really like her. Also, our sleeves that we have are the little sleeves that I got from the boxes that I got. I really do want to get Zero sleeves just to match with the deck, but you know, I still like these sleeves. They're pretty awesome. And look at her in the tree there with her little familiar whatnot. And also, I saw the full art of this picture or whatever of Zero's artwork, and you can't see him because he's hidden behind this textbook or whatever. But Milliam is down here, practicing with the sword that he has right here or whatever, because Zero is the one that's teaching him swordsmanship, which I think is pretty neat. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this deck profile video. Leave a comment below on what are your Zero builds. Are you aiming for some kind of control or aggro, or what are your plans for Zero? Like, because she has so many options or whatever. I totally love her that way. So until next time, guys, I will see you all later.